At this point, we've covered the model, and I've also showed you a specific example of it. Now I'm going to ask the audience if they have any questions. Ironically, if not coincidentally, a person's actually going to give up the exact same example that I brought up. The reason for that is that, for better or worse, a lot of people have that negative inner critic working on them.
Yeah, yesterday I was in my cognition class, and I started speaking, and then my heart started racing, and I just felt fucking like I can run or something.
Were you worrying about like what you were saying was smart? Did you think it felt dumb, or what was the, you know?
No, I wasn't thinking.
Right, you weren't thinking at all.
Yeah, I wasn't
Right.
thinking.
One incident doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Oh no, it's multiple incidents.
But it typically happens when you're talking in class about a variety of subjects,
Yeah,
right?
anything.
So my first thought is do I have value or am I good, right? So it's a self-esteem issue, it sounds like, potentially, right? Okay. So let's go with that. So now I have my typical questions that I ask to kind of focus on which question it might be. Would you say you have an inner negative critic? You know, do you have
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's funny you say of course, but not everyone has one, right? Well, that's funny.
That's the negative critic inside
Right.
of you, right?
Well, so here's the thing. This is a great interaction. I love this.
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, so kudos to you. Okay, you're being vulnerable in front of a bunch of people you don't know. Yeah. Which is kind of what goes on in class.
Television, or I don't
Right.
know where
Yeah.
this is gonna be.
Well, next time you see your parents, no. So the good thing about it is that, and this is a great way to deal with whatever the issue is, right? It's the old, you know, if you're afraid of snakes in an elevator, you get in an elevator with snakes kind of thing, right?
That's why I raised my hand
Right,
yesterday. Yeah.
great. When we have questions as to, you know, whether or not we have value, we're looking at our past, and typically we're looking at our youngest self, you know? Do you remember being criticized a lot when you were growing up?
Oh, in school, in my classroom, all the time.
By who?
By my teacher, 1st through 4th grade.
Okay, so here's a good example. Think about how you would want to teach a class. And you said in 1st grade?
Yeah,
right?
1st and 4th.
So now think about what a good teacher is in 1st grade. Does it make sense that a teacher should be belittling their students?
Oh, of course not.
Okay, so that's a good beginning, right? So that's the first thing, is now look at the 1st grade self, and you're being belittled in class. Now, it's not your problem. You're a 1st grader. There's a lot of stuff that you're not going to know, right? It's the teacher's job to make you feel comfortable. So here's one axiom that we'll start with here, is 100% of what someone says and does tells you something about them, right? And one of the and every single time when someone is putting you down, they're telling you that they do that to themselves. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing, is you want to separate the other person's behavior from who you are as a person.
Who am I?
Right? Seem like a good guy to me. Seem you know you have good a somewhat of a sense of humor, right? You know. Yeah. You know, I'm the father of 3 kids, and you know you're supposed to get this. You're supposed to feel cherished just for existing. You don't have to do anything.
Right.
You just have to merely be there, and your parents have the love and and think you're the greatest, right? That's the way it's supposed to be. It doesn't always turn out like that, right? Unfortunately, when you turn 18, now it's your responsibility to fix it. Emotions should be a standard curriculum of every grade, from 1st grade through your senior year in college, in my mind. Right? But we don't talk about it at all. But that says a lot about the school system, and honestly, just people being uncomfortable with talking about emotions. So let's get back to helping you. Number one is to distinguish when someone is saying something negative, they're telling you something about them, right? So you want to be able to separate that. The other thing is that you want to do is be able to reframe the memory.
Reframe the memory. Oh, I like that one. I haven't done that one yet.
Okay. And the really cool thing that they'll teach you in neuroscience is that every time you remember something, you pull it out of the memory into your working memory, and then you put it back. Mm-hmm. Which means every time you recall something, you have the ability to adjust it however you want. Mm-hmm. So now what you can start doing is when you start, when you're in that class, now you're going to start thinking about that 1st through 4th grade teacher, and you're going to how you belittled in class, and now you're going to add to, you know what? I don't think they were such a great teacher.
Add that to it?
Yeah.
They weren't such a great teacher.
So now when you're, when you're in class and you start to feel that panic attack, I want you to think about
Well,
that.
I feel compassion for them because I know that they were also, bullied and they had their own inner critic, and that's why they were doing that.
That is true. But, when you're an adult, you can accommodate people, right? I think that's fine. And I do it all the time. That's part of what I do, is I help people work through these things. But at some point, you have to make them responsible. Because if you don't, then the cycle keeps going.
Okay, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And certainly,
This interaction is a great example of what I do at my Emotions Expert booth and what I do with my coaching in general. And that's this. I help people start to question what their thought processes are. We all engage in these self-sabotaging behaviors, and they're driven by these misleading emotions. By helping people to look at that in a different way is going to help them change their behavior in the long term. Thank you for watching.